All right. Welcome, everybody, to Office Hours here at LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn Learning. Glad to have you. We have a really nice group of people, big, big attendance today. Thank you for introducing yourself. Keep those introductions coming. There's Armando. Tell us where you're from, too, if you get a chance. Or also be sure to put in the comments what is your interest in branding? Are you a branding professional, branding wannabe? Are you interested in creating a brand for your particular company or your startup? That's very important. I want to know what you're thinking about in terms of your branding needs. And thanks, Harry. Okay, so blender operator. We have I know, a plant manager here, which is interesting to me because typically the operations folks wouldn't be the first to come to mind in terms of branding needs. But I'm glad you're here. I also have, let's see, from where is he from? A company called, I'm not going to find it now. I put his name up there. It ends in 55. Who are you? Uh, Damien. Damien, yes. Damien is from Five Square, not 55, Five Square, which I'm guessing is a branding agency of some type. I might be wrong. But anyway, be sure to put into the comments any questions you have. It's always a good idea to preface your comment or your question with the letter Q and then colon, just so we know who we're dealing with here. And Jayesh, okay, he's from Calgary. Sorry about your Calgary hockey team, the Flames. and he is the founder of a startup. So this would be very relevant, no doubt, for you. Jonathan Gabby, one of my former students. Jonathan, nice to have you. Always have you on the. Thanks for following. Appreciate that. And let's see, Juan Manuel, very good, from Chile. Beautiful country, great people, fantastic wine. A lot of nice turnout today. Saudi Arabia, okay, operations. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to introduce this concept of branding. Like a lot of things, it's a misunderstood topic with a lot of myths about it. A lot of bad habits have been sort of developed over time about this. And so, what I want to do today is give you some foundational ideas, but most importantly, get right to it. I want to show you how to go and uh, create a brand, no matter what part of the business you're in, if that's important to you. I'm going to forget a lot about the theory of branding and all the benefits. I want to get right to it and show you the sort of the step-by-step approach to this. So let's go ahead and jump into it here. And the first question is right off the bat, what is a brand? Seems like a good question to ask, right? And it may seem obvious, but this is the probably the biggest source of confusion or misunderstanding about what branding is right off the bat. Here's the here's the answer. A brand is a promise. A promise that is delivered over and over. Now let's break that down. A brand is a promise that you make to customers of what they can expect every time they come in contact with your brand. So they expect it and you have to deliver it. And a brand is only created once you have delivered the goods, the promise, over and over. So just creating a brand is not enough. It's got to be a brand that is delivered. Now I'm going to explain exactly what I mean by that, but this is also important. What is a brand? What it is not. A brand is not a logo, and most people will tell you if you ask them what is a brand, they'll say, "Oh, a brand is a logo," and they'll ask if you ask them for an example, they'll say, "Well, the golden arches of McDonald's, or the iconic BMW logo, or something that comes to their mind, which from a consumer point of view, is not all bad because they're able to remember the brand, which is the whole point. You want them to remember the brand, but most importantly, what you want customers to remember is not the logo, it's the promise. And so if you were to ask consumers, think of one word associated with that brand when I name a brand, you hope that they come out with that promise that you've made to them. So if you say BMW, they should immediately say ultimate driving machine. uh, all right. So a brand is a promise. It is not just a logo. That is not the way you want to think about branding. Here are the steps to create a brand. And I'm watching the comments at the same time here, uh, just to make sure I catch any questions that you have or relevant comments. Keep them coming. First of all, number one, start with the promise. What is it that you are ultimately promising to the customer? What can they expect from you to get over and over every time they encounter to that brand? You decide the promise first, and I'll give you some guidance on how to do that. You create an identity. Promise first, then put an identity that you want the customers to latch onto and remember. Because that's what a brand is. It's a shortcut. It's a memory jogger. And you have to give the customer that shortcut in different forms over and over again. I'll show you how to do that. And then finally, communicate, and this is the key word, consistently. If you want customers to see your brand and to instantly recognize it and know what it's promising, then they have to be repetitively told in a consistent way what that brand is all about. So, comment here from Damien. Oh, Damien, so good to see you. So, pleased to be here after 10 years of being a plant manager and working for big companies. I've started my own, and I'd like to do that right from the beginning. My question is, let's see here. My question is how to be effective in building the brand from scratch. Well, you came to the right place. Look at this slide. Decide on the promise, create an identity, communicate consistently, and while he just put a comment in there, how to develop the promise and deliver it. Okay, let's go through each of these points one by one. Keep your comments and questions coming. First of all, decide on the promise. This is all there is to it. All there is to it. The little uh, easier said than done, but the promise is this: it's one benefit that you deliver to customers that is both important to them and that you deliver better than anyone else. Now, let's break this down. First of all, a promise should be one benefit. Look, in your business, you deliver many benefits, but you have to decide on just the single minded one benefit. And here's why: if you can't sell them on the most important benefit that you do very well, you're not going to sell them on all the other benefits. They don't matter. So you got to get the first and most important one right. So sit down with you and your team, look at everything you do for people, but then pick out that one gem of a benefit. One. Not 20, not 5, not 6. One. Now, it's got to be important to customers. Again, customers buy products for many reasons, but only one of them is most important. If they don't satisfy the most important benefit, the other benefits don't matter. So I recently bought a lawnmower, pretty cool lawnmower. It's a robotic lawnmower. I'm sure some of you are laughing because you know this story. I bought a lawnmower. Sadly, my wife ran over it the very first inaugural trial of this thing. So I got a new one. But what I wanted from it is the ability to cut the grass short consistently. Now, it does many other things. It does this and that and has these different features. If it won't do the most important thing, then I don't want it. So you have to pick one that is most important to customers. And then finally, that benefit should be something that you can deliver better than anyone else. Got some earplug problems here. All right. So what that means is you want a benefit that is important to customers and that you deliver better than anyone else in the market. And that's hard to do, especially if you're a startup. What if you're a startup and you don't deliver that benefit better than your competition? Maybe there's a market leader that does it better than you. Well, then here's what I advise. You should select a benefit that you deliver and do the best job of anything else you do. Even if it's not better than the competition, it is your what comparative advantage. In other words, pick the thing that you do better than anything else that you do. Let's say you do 6 things for your customers, but the one thing that you do for them is you're particularly good at it from your training, your experience, your products, technologies. That's the one that should be your lead punch, putting in sort of boxing terms. Now, a comment here from Mortada. It's like the USP. USP means unique selling proposition. USP, your unique selling point. Yeah, that's your promise. Okay. Step 2, the identity. Once you have the promise and not before, which is what I see all too often, you create a name for the promise, the brand, a logo, and a style guide, a style system. Now, the mistake I see people make is they come up with a great name for their company or their product and they think that's the brand. Not necessarily. You should understand the benefit that you're offering first and then create a name that communicates that promise. I mean, think about it. Why have some clever name for a product or a company, but then deliver a benefit that customers can't connect? They can't make that connection. You've confused them. And good branding is all about making sure customers are not confused, right? Don't let customers get confused. So don't run out and name your product first and create a logo. Develop the promise first, then a relevant name, and then create a logo, or better yet, have it created for you that immediately implies that benefit that people can look at and go, oh, I think I get what that does. Now, this third point is also important. A logo is not enough. You need to put sort of the style elements around it to you because you're going to be communicating this brand promise everywhere all the time. And so you want consistent information around the color scheme, the fonts, the tone, the imagery. What kind of photos? You want photos that are sort of consistently um, imaged, black and white, or with people all the time, or without people. In other words, you want a roadmap or a set of guidelines that will dictate so you don't drift from that. Because once you have this, you continue to reinforce it to your customer. If all of a sudden you change colors or you change the logo or you change something, they're unsure. You've confused them. And so this leads to the next point. communicate. And here's the advice if you remember nothing else about branding, the key to it is simple, consistent look and feel. Simple, everything you do should have a simple, consistent look and feel. And this quote, I put it in quotes because it comes from an old friend, colleague, and a mentor of mine, Dr. Chris Allen, Professor Allen, who's now retired, Professor Emeriti. And he was so instrumental in helping me understand branding and how to communicate it. And this is what he used to do. He would visit companies like mine at the time and look at all our products, all our packaging, our website. Imagine taking every communicative aspect that you have and laying it out in the parking lot and then going, yikes, what would customers think here? Would they get it? Or are you all over the map with different looks and feels? It's a problem. You may be in a company that's suffering from brand anarchy where everything looks different. And it's not hard to understand why this happens, right? Especially some new employee, some new VP of marketing or some new president or some new marketing manager comes in and goes, "Hey, I know. I'm gonna change the packaging. I'm gonna be a hero. I'm gonna make big improvements to this. Put this out there, and I'm gonna be really proud of it." And they go off and create some new version of the logo or change the website design, or you get a new marketing agency that doesn't have your brand guidelines, so they make it up. And what do you end up with? Brand anarchy. Let me look at some questions here. Swastyaon. All right. Suppose a competitor has come up with this something better than the benefit company A was offering the benefit yesterday. Now, in the case, does company A need to reinvent the ultimate or the unit selling proposition and hence reinvent the brand? Now, I have a different answer for that. Don't go chasing your tail. If you know that term, that's what a dog will do when it's confused. It'll chase its tail. You don't want to chase your tail here and keep changing the brand because your competitor came out with something better. The answer is not change the brand. The answer is innovate and create something better than them. It's competition, but you don't win it through just changing, like, oh, they're better than us, so we're going to change what we look like now. I can see why you would think that, but don't. Uh, they may have something good today, but they may run into problems down the road. You're better keeping brand loyalty and adjusting your marketing mix. Keep your brand consistent. Keep that long-term understanding of your brand rather than try to move away from it. Don't do that. JS Mystery, our trademark tagline is "Every drop is so precious." Okay, so he's from Aquastar, some sort of beverage, I'm guessing. Uh, he gives a little background here. Okay, so field of water, wastewater treatment. Good. Jonathan Gabby, let's see what else here. Checking the comments here. Hello from Albania. Arisa, thank you. Can someone do this alone? I think the most important thing is to have a team in order to create a brand. Well, in a minute, you're going to see that that's true. You need a team for part of it. Oh, no, I take that back. You need a team. It's hard to do this alone. You can, but without good advice from a team of advisors, you're likely to make less than optimal choices. So I'll come back to that. Let me keep going through here. All right. Any other questions? Please put them in the comments. Than Tong, brand is an awareness. Yeah, but it's a promise. It's an awareness of a promise. That's what I'm saying about that. All right. So let's keep moving here. I like to keep these to 30 minutes or so, 30 to 45 minutes. Respect your time, my time. Now, simple, consistent look and feel means everything you do, your website. If I were to go to your website, I'd immediately expect to encounter the brand, the name of the brand, the logo, the color, style elements, And then once I see that, I lock in on that. And then when I look at your packaging, I should expect to see the same thing. If I were to walk in your store, if you have a store, in your emails, in your uh, internal and external communications. By the way, you got to communicate internally too. The internal team has to understand the brand just as well as your customers, or otherwise, there's a big source of confusion if your customers don't get what the promise is. They got to be on board with it. They're really part of delivering that brand. So I should, in this laundry list of things here, should be customer communications. Your frontline people on the phone or in emails or in person. Anytime you talk to people, they should be talking the language of the brand because they are the brand. Part of it, certainly. A brand is a promise delivered over and over. Okay, so here are some pointers. I keep watching here for questions if you've got them. First of all, get input and advice, right, Arisa? Uh, you need a team for several parts of this. First and foremost, your promise. Uh, Form an advisory group of employees if you have teammates, customers if you can get some customers. Involve them. Why not? Uh, if you have advisors like your banker or your suppliers, ask people around you, hey, what do you think it is I do really well? What's the one thing you think customers really appreciate the most or expect the most from me? And then listen. It may surprise you. You may be thinking, "Oh, we do this so well," but no, what the customers really want is this. That's your brand. And the other things are then are part of how you differentiate and add the full story to that promise. But don't overcomplicate this. Don't overthink it. Get a team of people, listen to them. Pointer number 2, hire a graphic designer. Now, I looked at the list of people that had planned to attend this. One of them was a guy named Peter Roman. And Peter, I don't know if you're on the live stream. If you are, just go ahead and weigh into the comments here. But Peter is a professional graphic designer, long career as an independent graphic designer, as well as with large companies like Procter and Gamble. I mean, this guy's a pro. And I've worked with Peter many times. I've had him design my parts of my website, my new logos, anything I do. I involve a professional graphic designer because, folks, you need to pay attention to delivering the benefit. Let the professionals create graphic imagery that delivers um, a look and feel that customers can understand. It's not important that you like the logo. It's important that customers will remember it and use it for that shortcut that it is and instantly connect what they see to that promise. Let a graphic designer do that for you. They're great. Third piece of advice is create what's called a brand book. Doesn't have to be long, could be one page. But what it is a rule book. And it should be a strict rule book. You should write it down and hand it to everybody in the company and say, number one, don't change the logo. Always use the logo the same way. You could put in there examples of how to use the logo on business cards or on billboards, right? Give them specific guidelines because if you don't, they'll make it up. They'll do what they think is the right thing to do, and they could stray from the brand guidelines. Here again, we open up the opportunity for confusion on the part of the customer. We don't want that. We're exactly defeating the whole point of branding. So create a brand book. That's where you put your style guide, color scheme, information about fonts and templates and websites, photography, tone, the voice of the brand. It can be a very uh, long document, and I've seen brand books, that are quite extensive. But for a good example, go to uh, the website for the University of Cincinnati, where I look, and on that site we publish our brand elements, and so that anybody that wants to represent the University of Cincinnati logo, maybe an alumni or a company or somebody wants to use the logo for some event, we give them the exact assets, the logos in imagery form, PowerPoint templates. Oh, that's another one. Make sure your PowerPoints now are exactly like the brand book. Everything, your clothing, everything. Create a brand book. I can't tell you how important it is. Now, we're talked about what's the brand's tone of voice. Uh, Tone of voice is related a little bit to the personality of a brand. One way to think about a brand is if it were a person and you were to meet it on the street, what would you expect? What would the brand look like? What would it talk like? And there are personifications of the brand. There are personas. So, for example, in the U.S., we have a brand here called Mr. Clean. Mr. Clean is this big, burly guy dressed in white, bald head, and I think he has a little earring in his ear, if I recall. And Mr. Clean has been an iconic uh, brand here in the U.S. for many years, and probably in many of your markets. And I see Mr. Clean, he's got his arms folded like this, big strong arms, big smile on his face, and it's like he means business. He's got to make this place clean. And if I were to go up to Mr. Clean, I would shake his hand. It'd be a firm handshake. He'd have a deep voice. He'd probably say he's positive, he's confident, he's disciplined, helpful, friendly. Let's get this done. Let's get these floors clean. As opposed to, let's say, a brand like Virgin Atlantic. Virgin. Virgin is a brand with music, airlines, clothing, a multifaceted, unique brand from the UK. And that brand persona is the founder, Richard Branson. And what is Richard Branson all about? He's all about the maverick. He's the little bit like Elon Musk here in the US. I'm going to do things differently. Totally different than Mr. Clean. Not sure he'd sit down with you. He'd probably want to lecture you a little bit, tell you how to be edgy and cool, and totally different brand personality, brand tone. So tone goes along, that tone of voice goes along with the persona. And that tone of voice should be reflected in your written copy on your website. It should have the right tone. Go to my website, drewboyd.com, and the tone of the language there is me. People see my website and they read it, and then when they meet me, they go, "Oh, you're just like your website." That's not by accident. That's the tone. Great question. Checking for other questions here. All right, let's go back to the last pointer. Oh, this is going to surprise you. Don't create a brand unless it's needed. I think we get so enamored with this idea of a brand, like, oh, I've got a brand. No, branding really can be expensive in the creation of it and the maintenance of it and the constant communication of it. Look, don't put yourself through all that work and all that expense unless you really need it. So, why would you need a brand? A brand can help retention, it can help you launch new products effectively. When you launch a brand, I'm sorry, a new product under an established brand, customers immediately get it. So if Dyson were to launch a new product, I bet it's probably a very good product, and it has something to do with blowing air, whatever it is. So without that Dyson brand behind it, a new product has all the work to do for itself to get customers to appreciate it. So brands can be efficient. If you expect to launch a lot of new products, then yeah, have a brand. But many businesses are what we call B2B. So I worked with a wonderful company down in Boca Raton recently called JM&A, named after their founder Jim Moran. JM&A, I bet nobody on this live stream has heard of JM&A, but they're a fantastic company. They provide all kinds of financial insurance products for car dealerships. Anytime you buy a warranty, an extended warranty, or some sort of tire protection for your car, it's probably developed by JM&A. So they're like the Intel Inside to car dealerships here in the US. So they don't need a publicly facing brand. As it turns out, they have a well established image and logo, but it's not needed in the way of a consumer facing brand, which is what many people think of. If you make widgets and sell those widgets to a big company that puts your widget inside of something, the everyday consumer doesn't need to hear about it. Don't waste your time creating a brand. Remember, it's just a shortcut, a memory jogger, and only create one if you need it. Okay? All right. That is it. Oh, yeah, one point here. I do have a course here on LinkedIn Learning called uh, Branding Foundations, Branding Fundamental. Yeah, Branding Foundations. I can't even remember the name of the course. And it's a nice course. It goes through this in much more detail, specifically around many of these aspects around brand persona and brand tone. Also, things like brand architecture. Also, how to use branding in a store or in a lobby of your company, branded spaces. So be sure to check that out if you have an interest in branding for whatever part of your business. Okay, so that is it today. Take one last look at questions here. Uh, Mike Carr, thank you. Dr. Mike, Dr. C, colleague of mine at UC. Great chat, Drew. Hope all is well. All is well, Michael. Always see you. And who else we have here? We have Misha from, doesn't say where, but okay, Misha. Something I personally found useful with branding is the product family. You can see it with Microsoft, Power BI, PowerPoint. Yeah, Misha, what you're talking about is the brand family, or what sometimes we call the brand architecture. And brand families help customers figure it out, sort it out. Microsoft is a very good example of good branding. Thank you for that comment, Misha. Very, very nice comment. Where are you from, Misha? Type it in there if you don't mind. Where are you from? Uh, Nagham has a question. How do we define when a product becomes a brand? Sorry, perhaps this is a vague question. Well, a lot of ways to answer that question. What I worry about is a product name isn't necessarily a brand name. They could be. What can you brand? You can brand a company, you could brand a business unit, you could brand a family of products. So at Procter and Gamble, they have the Febreze line or Crest. Crest is a family brand of lots of different products for your mouth, oral care, toothbrushes, toothpaste, floss, and everything else. As I give you my visual demonstration here. You can also brand it down to the product level or to the technology. So you could brand, uh, a particular electric vehicle technology that you have. And those are all possibilities, but go back to the brand is not the product or element itself, it's the promise behind it that it's that's being delivered. As long as you keep that straight and you organize them the way Misha has suggested here, and he's from the Netherlands. Misha, thank you. So Nagham, I'm sorry, Nagman. I hope I helped you answer that. That's often the confusion. Now, on product names, that's a topic for another live stream one day. How to name a product, uh, because sometimes people name products with these crazy, you know, the JBX 722. What the heck is a JBX 722? Companies name their products in a way that completely mystifies customers sometimes, and there's a whole nother uh, discussion we should have about that. Jonathan Gabby, question here. Let's see what Jonathan is asking. He says, what are some pitfalls for new org startups to avoid that you've seen in your work and experience? Uh, the biggest pitfall is they run out and create the name and the brand name and logo before they've really put any meaning to it, any thought to it. What are they really doing? They rush into it, rush to judgment, and they get stuck with this, and then later have to go back and change it when they really figure out what they're doing. Biggest pitfall. Second biggest pitfall is not using an industrial graphic designer for their design work. Spend money. Uh, it's worth it. I think I saw somebody here mention how they like my logo. Yeah, here we go. This is nice. I really enjoy the graphic of your logo. Initials DB in the shape of a box reinforces inside the box. Very nice. You saw the what we call the Easter egg. If you look carefully at the box that's in the logo on the page you see here, if you look carefully, you'll see the letter D and the letter B hidden inside of it. I didn't come up with that. It was a very smart graphics professional. I'd love to take credit, but I didn't do it. And she really surprised me. She said, "Do you look at it? Do you see anything?" I had to look, and I finally found it. My initials. So that was pretty cool. All right. So, uh, and comment from Mike Carr here. Let's see what Mike has to say. Mike, yeah, I also think pitfalls for startups not having a go-to-market strategy for the products and services. Yeah, structure follows strategy. You know, the choice of brand really is a strategic issue. It really it's a strategy issue. What are we about? What are we delivering? What do we get up for and make our life's work about? Thanks, Mike. Dr. C. Okay, so more questions coming up here. This is great. Let me see what we have. All right, so Harry, question. If I'd have to make a brand, what's the real process to create it? Okay, we'll go back to and look at the steps I outlined here. And I'll call it brand 101, sort of the simple version. And those are select the promise, meaning the benefit that you deliver better than anyone else, create an identity. Then, once you have the promise figured out, and the identity should kind of look like what the promise delivers. Don't create some weird name that no one will understand at first. You know, I'd be more inclined to create a name that people will immediately get what the brand is about. Mr. Clean. And then communicate in a simple, consistent form over and over in everything you do. Those are the three steps, Harry. For more detail, I would encourage you to look at my course here on LinkedIn Learning. All right, question from Mayada. Maybe this is a repeated question. What is the business without a brand identity? Oh, a business could be completely void of a brand identity. Brand identity is not necessary. There are many, many businesses that don't brand and don't need to. They sell products to governments or to schools, and they sell food or they sell other products and services. You don't need to brand. Don't think that is a necessary aspect of a brand. Because what is a business? A business is nothing more than a black box. You put resources in, assets like money and people and intellectual property. What comes out of it is cash for the owners. Post tax, what we call free cash. Free, you've already paid your taxes, all your expenses. Okay. And a brand is just one asset. It's an important asset for some businesses, but not every. Common understanding. All right, we are out of time. This has been great. A lot of good questions, great attendance from a lot of people all over the world. Once again, thank you very much. Really makes it worth my while on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Speaking of which, here's what we're doing next week. I will be in Amsterdam. Speaking of our guest here from Amsterdam, where is he? Yeah, Misha. I will be in Amsterdam and I'll be working with a company, a global company there for several days. But on Tuesday, I will take time in local Amsterdam time, but 11 a.m. Eastern US time. And I'm going to talk about fostering team creativity and what that means. What are some things you can do in teams to improve the creative output of the team? So be sure to join us for that. And I would also encourage you, speaking of which, be sure to check out my podcast. It comes out every Monday. It's all about creativity inside the box. And it is short. It's a 10 to 12 minute podcast that you can listen to and download from all the usual places, Spotify, Apple, etc. So please check that out. Also, if you get a chance, I would certainly appreciate if you would go to LinkedIn and my profile and hit the follow button. The follow. I have 29,000 followers. Almost, we're this close to 30,000. Let's see if we can push it over. Go out there and hit the follow button. All right. That is it for this week. Thanks again. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Bye bye now.